In this video, we're going to look at what George Lucas and his Star Wars films have to suggest about technology and control and fear as a way of power versus trust in the Force, alignment with the Force, alignment with nature, yielding to the powers of nature as a way to create power in one's life and in the world. And he has some very interesting ways of unpacking those ideas and putting flesh on those bones. Over the course of this scene, you have one example of George Lucas discussing or presenting a case of a conflict between someone who believes that the ultimate power is the Force, Darth Vader, and someone else who believes that the ultimate force is the technological terror called the Death Star. And the question in this room is how best to maintain control over the star systems that the Emperor controls. And the Empire's way is fear. It's going to use fear of the battle station in order to create that control. But this Moff here is concerned that that won't work because the Rebel Alliance is too powerful. Darth Vader says he's going to be able to solve that problem. But then this other Moff says that the ultimate power is through the technology of the Death Star. And so they don't need the Force, they don't need Darth Vader, they don't need to do anything to stop the Alliance. And Darth Vader, of course, has a problem with that. And let's look at what he does. He uses the Force to make a point. So the question here is, the filmmakers, in this case George Lucas, is also making a point about the will of the Force and the power of the Force being the far greater value than the technology represented by the Death Star. Okay, in this next clip, you have another battle between technology and organic life. In this case, it's the droids who represent technology, and organic life is represented by Chewbacca. And more than organic life, he also is a symbol of nature. His brown fur and his connection to nature suggests that he represents nature. And in a kind of a jokey way, this scene suggests that because the droids want to let him win, that means nature trumps technology. And again, in this scene, we have something similar going on. This one's more profound and more to the point because it's Luke learning how to use the Force, and that remote and his use of his logical brain to try and get the best of the remote represent the way humans try to control technology, try to use technology to control nature and to control life. And then when you have Obi-Wan deny him access to his eyes by putting the blast shield over them, he denies Luke's ability to have access to logic, his ability to have access to his normal senses. And then the feelings represent the way that the Force communicates to Luke. And when he yields to the will of the Force, when he gives in to the will of the Force, that's also him giving in to the will of nature. And this is, again, George Lucas presenting the idea that nature is always going to win, that nature overcomes human control because human control is so small and puny compared to the great force that is nature, or the force itself. As this set of clips shows, and as many more that I could bring out of this movie also show, George Lucas is going for a message in episode 4 about technology versus nature or force power, suggesting that no matter how much math you do, no matter how big a weapon or how powerful a weapon you create, it will never be as great as the ultimate power of the Force. The ultimate power of the Force, which is the power of nature, will always be greater than what humans can do. Even their understanding of the Force will always be nothing compared to what the Force's will and the Force's desire can do. This becomes a very important message throughout all of the Star Wars films that George Lucas was involved in, and also the TV show Clone Wars that he was involved in. To a greater or lesser extent, the theme continues in the Disney Star Wars. Generally, if Dave Filoni is involved, it's a greater extent, and if Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau are not involved, it's a lesser extent. That's a overgeneralization, but you get the point. Some of these people listen to George Lucas's ideas, others ignore them.